Harry's wife. Who are you? Narcissists always like to be recognised. That's because we're extremely important. Don't you know who I am? Invariably the call of a E-list, F-list, Z-list celebrity who's been denied access to Bonkers Night Spot by a tuxedoed gorilla that has no idea who this individual is. Your name's not down, you're not coming in. But don't you know who I am? Says the Z-list celebrity indignantly. And of course, the failure to recognise is an affront to the narcissist. The narcissist believes that everybody knows who they are. Take, for example, parts pass him about James Corden, arsehole, where it was recounted that when people met him, he didn't bother to introduce himself because his arrogance was such that he assumed they all knew who he was. And of course, many other people were thinking, who's this tubby fucker that stood here? The narcissist expects to be recognised, expects to be admired and adored, expects people to kiss their pinky ring, and a failure to recognise a narcissist invariably wounds. Or, if the individual says, I'm sorry, who are you again? It's challenge fuel. And of course, Harry's wife ends up with some wounding, as, yes, it's Tuesday, which means we have our fill of arsewipes with another podcrap, hosted by Spotterlie. The Daily Mail tells us, in an article written by Martin Robinson, awkward moment. Harry's wife's TV producer podcrap guest forgets he's met her twice during Archetypes season finale. I very much doubt there's any weeping at the demise of this shit show of a podcrap for which she's been paid an extraordinary amount of money to basically produce a self-indulgent checklist of all the names that I've been called, and now I'm getting back at people. It's a snooze fest galore, other than it has provided us with much entertainment in terms of laughing at her ineptitude and, of course, dissecting all of that vis-a-vis narcissism. Episode 12 of Archetypes was released today, called Manifesting a Cultural Shift. Insert groan here. Harry's wife today revealed she was a huge fan of the Real Housewives TV series and was starstruck when she twice spoke to its creator, Andy Cohen, who has no memory of meeting her. The embarrassing moment emerged as the former Suits star released the final episode of her Archetypes podcast featuring male guests for the first time after Prince Harry suggested it. I suspect that he didn't, and in actual fact that somebody in the production staff said, look, you're going to get a load of heat from people who are saying this is all about women, you need to let the men in for a little bit. But what we'll do is, rather than you accept that somebody lower than you in terms of the production staff has suggested it, we'll make it sound like you listen to your husband even though you don't. The only time you listen to him is when he's telling you how wonderful you are and his yelps of pain when you're applying the cattle prods to his pink pancakes. Accordingly, to my mind, that's a fabrication that Prince Harry suggested it. The Duchess of Sussex, 41, who lives in Montecito, California, talked of her love for the Real Housewives franchise with its executive producer Andy Cohen. I should imagine that she's never actually watched it, but that the notes tell her that he is the producer and therefore, by way of flattery and revision of history, she talks about how wonderful it is. But said she stopped watching when her own private life became more dramatic, a likely nod to meeting Harry and joining the royal family. I'm sure that members of the Markle household will be saying, oh, she created plenty of drama before old Ginger Bollocks came along. And in an awkward start to the episode, called Manifesting a Cultural Shift, Harry's wife says she has met Mr. Cohen on several occasions when she was in Suits, but it became clear he had forgotten when he said, nice to meet you, at the beginning of the interview. Rather embarrassing for Harry's wife that the guest doesn't recall having met her before. Hardly a surprise, because somebody as beige as her may well have been stood in front of a magnolia or beige wall, with the consequence that he didn't notice her. And she's certainly not memorable enough when you meet her in the old style, if you will, because no doubt she'll have just droned on talking about herself, causing eye roll injury and a sudden retreat from her. Harry's wife said, "I met you before, you'll never remember it." He replied, "You're joking." To which Harry's wife laughed and said, "Would I joke about that? This is great." She went on, "I met you twice. The first one is when Suits wasn't even on yet, and then when we had maybe season 2 or 3, we were in New York." This, of course, demonstrates the form of her misfiring narcissism, because in actual fact, why not leave this out? Why include this? Well, because she thinks it makes her look relatable, and she thinks it's a little funny, amusing anecdote to share, but in actual fact, it just demonstrates how she lacks being memorable. Revealing that she wanted to be on his late-night TV show, Watch What Happens Live, she said, "I was so eager to be on your show because I was such a Housewives fan at the time, and I just couldn't get booked, Andy." Pity play, flattery, revision of history. Mr. Cohen squealed uncomfortably as he regaled the stories, and she said, it's not bad, don't sweat." He then said, "I had that feeling when basically we started to kind of forensically figure out if it was you, because we had a sense we kind of put it together a little. We were like, I think she may be a Housewives fan, but even worse, I was like, oh my God, if it turns out that Harry's wife actually expressed an interest to be on Watch What Happens Live, it is now the biggest blunder in the 13 years of the show." I tell you something, Mr. Cohen, it isn't. You dodged a bullet. After she admitted being a long-time fan of the show, Andy, one of the 3 male guests, told Harry's wife, "I guess the million-dollar question is, do you still watch The Housewives? This is what we've been dying to know." Asking a question, which is seeking accountability of her, and thus is a threat to control. Harry's wife replied, "Well, I will tell you the truth. I stopped watching The Housewives when my life had its own level of drama." I doubt that she ever actually did watch it. "That I stopped," Andy finished her sentence for her, saying, "craving other people's?" Harry's wife agreed with his interpretation and said, "I get why it was such a huge part of pop culture, and when it began, because you began with Orange County and I'm from California, at least," she added, bringing it back, of course, talking to about herself. "It felt remotely like a world that I knew, but still felt so foreign," she added. Cohen went on to mention rumours that were swirling around a possible appearance from Harry's wife on the Beverly Hills series of the franchise after she and the Duke of Sussex stepped down as senior royals and moved to the US to become the Duke and Duchess of Overseas. She laughed them off, saying she wasn't aware of any rumours and that she wouldn't appear in any reality TV show, open brackets, apart from the one that's going to be on Netflix, close brackets. At the start of the show, Harry's wife admitted that her British husband said she should speak to men on the show, currently 29 in the Spotify charts, to shift the gender debate. Harry doesn't use words like gender debate. All he thinks about is masturbate. The Duchess of Sussex spoke to host of The Daily Show, Trevor Noah, movie director Judd Apatow, and Mr. Cohen for their take on the labels and tropes that try to hold women back. I bet they were delighted to be asked that question. Her Spotify podcast deal is rumoured to be worth $18 million, and episode 12 of her show is finally completed 2 years after the contract was signed with the streaming giant, which has just turned into a steaming giant turd. Harry's wife revealed that the first male guests on Archetypes came after Prince Harry, the only man to appear on an episode so far, suggested she should. And of course, he only made a cameo appearance with Serena Williams. She said, "Now, if you've been listening to the past 11 episodes, your brain has probably melted out of your ears. You may have noticed that you haven't heard many of Ven's voices." "Oh, really? Thank you for stating the obvious. In fact, until now, outside of a quick pop in from my husband in the first episode, this show has featured exclusively women's voices. You're being paid $18 million for this dross, telling us what we already know," which, of course, is the kind of banal nonsense that this clown comes out with. "It was important to us that women have a space, bullshit bingo, to share their authentic, bullshit bingo, and complicated, complex, and dynamic experiences, bullshit bingo, and to be understood. But through that process, it also occurred to me, and truth be told at the suggestion of my husband, bullshit, that if we really want to shift how we think about gender and the limiting labels that we separate people into, then we have to broaden the conversation. Bullshit. Bingo once again. Really, is this such a major revelation to you, oh blancmange brain, that you think, oh, actually, shouldn't we involve the men in this, seeing as they make up roughly 50% of the denizens on this planet? And she again says this as if it's some major revelation which demonstrates how dim this woman is. Trevor Noah opened up about the shooting of his South African mother, Patricia Noah, at the hands of his stepfather, mechanic Abel Shingange, saying that all he felt was rage in the wake of the horrifying incident. I would have thought this was a missed opportunity, because presumably she could have asked Trevor Noah, hey, didn't all of South Africa celebrate and go out dancing in the streets, a la David Bowie and Mick Jagger, as a consequence of learning that I'd married Harry? Confirm it's true. After all, wouldn't that put to bed the denial that came from the Lion King cast member? No, of course it wouldn't do. She wouldn't ask it because it never happened. Mr. Noah said that he and his mother relied on each other, and he was suddenly man of the house. He said, I remember my mum saying to me when I was very young, she said, remember, you can be the head of your household as a man without owning a cent more than your woman said you can earn nothing. She said, being a man has nothing to do with how you wield your power in the household, it's just how you fulfill your role. Last month, Noah was involved in a row with the Prime Minister after he claimed the UK a racist country. No prizes then for understanding why he was invited onto the show, falsely claiming there was outcry that Indians are going to take over after Rishi Sunak became PM. But in a video posted on Twitter from The Daily Show, Noah said, watching the story of Rishi Sunak becoming England's first Prime Minister of colour of Indian descent, of all these things and then seeing the backlash is one of the more telling things about how people view the role that they or their people have played in history. I don't know what backlash he's referring to. There wasn't one. And I think most people would recognise that Rishi Sunak isn't perhaps representative of most Indian people, given the fact that he's worth several £100 million and was educated in the premier education establishments and doesn't really have any working class chums, etc., as he freely admitted. Anyway, Mr. Noah carried on, and what I mean by that is you hear a lot of people saying, oh, they're taking over. Now the Indians are going to take over Great Britain, and what's next? And I always find myself going, so what? What are you afraid of? He suggested that fear was based on the previously oppressed taking revenge against their tormentors upon getting into power. No, I think that's quite simply a wet dream of yours, Mr. Noah. Tom Holland, the historian, author and podcaster, said, as ever, the inability of American liberals to understand the world beyond the United States in anything but American terms is a thing of wonder. The likelihood of the right-wing party in the US choosing a Hindu as its leader is, I would agree, effectively zero. Mr. Sunak's grandparents were from the Punjab state before the Indian subcontinent was divided into India and Pakistan in 1947 after British colonial rule ended. Noah, 38, grew up in a mixed-race family during apartheid and is one of the United States' best-known satirists. His family moved to East Africa and then settled in the UK in the 1960s. The article then repeats her apparently loving the Real Housewives drama. So we have another pod crap, which reveals to us more of her banal dim-wittedness, the fact that she tells us things as if they are major, major breakthrough announcements, the fact that she again revises history and provides us with an episode which doesn't tell us very much apart from the fact that Andy Cohen completely forgot twice who she was. Oh dear, hardly a good day for the Duchess of Sussex in that regard. Let's have a quick dip below the line. It's always entertaining to do so, to see what people's views and responses are to what she had to state. Disillusioned. Final episode. Please let it be true. Your rock is calling you back, Harry's wife. Please get under it. G's 1066. Oh, what complete drivel. I hope she was worth the money. Spotify somehow, I doubt it. Glinda G adding, her ratings were behind the lullabies. Petter Rabbit, Harry asked her to speak out about that. Oh, please. Another person identifying that they don't believe it either. Mandate sheep, woke meets woke. Pass the sick bucket. I feel nauseous. Jules 467. Sycophants, all of them. No one ever presents a challenge to this woman. Thinking person responds she won't allow it. Indeed, that's correct. Her narcissism operates in such that it always has to be supine publications, supine guests that will not challenge her, because her narcraft and her cognitive function are not suitable to enable her to deal with anybody challenging her, and therefore her narcissism is always going to take the safe option of ensuring that the people that come on behave like marshmallows. DeFew writes, she's a complete bore. Big mistake, Spotify. Jane Doe, she needs to go away. Mary0925, love the Housewives show, but wants to be the voice of female stereotypes. Again, demonstrating the hypocrisy. Katie, I love that she was trying to blag a part on that show, but he doesn't even remember her despite meeting her twice. She has zero talent and zero charisma to make it without the royal connection. Harry is an idiot. Mazza 2020, blah blah, we don't care, just buzz off. Glamoramo, whatever. Gator Grandpa, such a whiner. Whilst Harry's wife is pumping out another bland pod crap, Camilla is hosting Spice Girl Mel B, Queen Rhaenyra of Jordan, Crown Princess Mary of Denmark at a Buckingham Palace reception to raise awareness of violence against women, something that Camilla has been involved in for many years, and included also television presenter Lorraine Kelly, reality TV star Zara McDermott, as well as Ukraine's First Lady Olena Zelenska, Queen Matilda of Belgium, the First Lady of Sierra Leone, as well as the Countess of Wessex, and former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's wife Carrie and his sister Rachel Johnson. Oh, but isn't Camilla a racist? How dare she invite somebody from Sierra Leone? And it demonstrates, of course, as a consequence, demonstrates here that the cachet and pull of Camilla involving herself in such works and the calibre of the people that turn up is something, again, that Harry's wife would want, but demonstrates the gulf in class between the two. What's also interesting is that Harry's wife remains silent about whether there's going to be a series 2. Maybe she's expecting there will be, and if Spotify has got any sense, there will not be. But that remains to be seen. Undoubtedly, there'll be more that comes out of this, but those are the initial observations with regard to how her narcissism, the bland version that it functions and operates as, continues to make itself known, and the embarrassing nature, of course, of her not being known and identified. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.